Now, if you are not sure where you are, you're in Kathy Hester's culinary potions class for the afternoon, and happy Halloween to all of you. What we're going to make today is we're going to make pumpkin juice. So there's kind of two components to pumpkin juice. One is kind of the apple cider that we're going to, or apple juice, really, you could use either one, that we're going to infuse with some allspice and cinnamon and ginger, and just really make it fall flavored. So, because you can do Harry Potter stuff more than just Halloween, right? So if you're doing it at Halloween, you could shortcut that and get spice cider. So just so you know. But if you're going to do a Harry Potter party like any other time of the year, though, you're not going to have that option. So we would have to do it from scratch. Okay. I want to get two things kind of going while we're talking. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to put 3 cups of apple cider or apple juice. And then I'm using a Mexican cinnamon stick. And let me see if you guys can see this overhead. So it's a little more crumbly, and watch. So I'm going to strain this in a little while anyhow to strain that out. I'm going to go ahead and crush this so that we can pull out more of that cinnamon flavor as we're infusing it. If you have a regular old cinnamon stick, like the hard ones that don't do this, they work perfectly fine. So don't feel like you are left out in any way, shape, or form. And I am also then going to put in about 7-ish, like half a teaspoon of whole allspice berries. Then I'm going to put in some thinly sliced ginger. You know what? It would help if I had that in focus. I may or may not have gotten my wand out for that, people. So what we're going to do, actually, now that you're seeing this, is to make life a little bit easier. I'm going to simmer this on the other stove so I can make some other stuff. But first, let me splash some things around. And if you have done this, you have to smell it, even right now, without it having much on at all. So I am literally going to put it on a lowish heat. And this is what I do when I'm making it home, is I let it cool. And if you let it cool with all those spices in there, what happens is it infuses it even stronger. So that's not a bad thing at all. But like I said, if you have spice cider and you just want to make a cheat, you could just use 3 cups of spice cider instead of doing this. All smart wizards and witches use timers because things just sneak out. So let me let you see what this looks like. So I'm going to turn that off. Turn this off, and we're going to come back to it. See that boil? Let me show you overhead. So you can see the steam, and you're starting to smell those spices and yumminess. And you could cook it longer than 10 minutes. But like I said, while we're doing this, I'm just going to sit it over to the side. So I've taken it off the burner that's hot and just set it to the side. And we're going to let it cool down a little bit. Okay. So in this, these are my apricots. Now yours may look different than this because mine didn't have any coloring or anything like that. They were unsulfured. So they're a little more brown, and that's okay. So let's say you soaked your apricots just a wee bit longer than we would have liked. You could discard the liquid and come with fresh water. I just got these soaking this morning, so this water is fine. We're going to puree it with some of our pumpkin puree. And if there's a pumpkin shortage, which there seems to be every couple of years, you can actually either make your own pumpkin puree, and it's really easy to do in the slow cooker. You can actually get a pie pumpkin is what you want to get, the little bitty cute ones. Those are the ones that have the most flesh and taste good, not the big ones that we make jack-o'-lanterns out of. So what you would do is find one that fits in your slow cooker, however big it is, right? Poke some holes, wash it really good on the outside, poke some holes, put it in, cook it on low until it'll sag in. Let it cool. And I mean it. Let it cool all the way. Then you're going to pull the top off and steam is going to come out. So you want it to not do that. And then you're just going to take a spoon after it's cooled, get all the insides out, and then you can literally just use a spatula and the pumpkin flesh will come off and puree all on its own. So you could do that, or you could use butternut squash puree, because honestly, there's a lot of butternut squash puree in what we call pumpkin puree. We're going to put about half a cup of pumpkin puree in here. Right? Yeah. And we're going to put the nutmeg in here too. So I'm kind of free-forming it. In a can, typically, is a cup and a half of stuff. So I'm putting about a third of this can in here. If you go a little less, a little more, that's okay. Make it the way that you like it. That if there's nothing else you learned today besides somebody beside you loves Harry Potter, is that I want you to make these things where they taste the way you want them to. And we're going to put how much nutmeg? We're going to put in here about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So just a wee amount. Let's puree this really good. And if you don't have a powerful blender, soaking the apricots really helps that. If you have a super powerful blender, you can get away with not soaking. And we want to puree it as much as we can. And so one thing you could do if you don't want to bother with this is you can buy apricot puree, or sometimes there will be a really thick juice. Ah, a Death Eater. You want to try some pumpkin juice later?
Sure, yeah.
I think it'll make you happier, and then you'll just kind of get over this whole evil thing. So that was completely unplanned, which is why I cannot keep a straight face. But let me let you see. And we're going to scrape down the puree too. So those of you that are used to making my recipes, see? So it really does just look like what I was saying, puree. And we just want it to be smooth. And in the parks and Universal Studios, we can have pumpkin juice. So that is kind of nice. So that ends up being the defaulto vegan drink sometimes. Okay, so this is the first blender part. So what I'm going to do, and I know I have it somewhere, is in the strainer. There it is. So you want to have a nice strainer. And I'll let you see this. Well, actually, it's probably more fun to watch it from the side, honestly. And this isn't really hot. So I'm going to pour it so all the spices and the ginger slices just get caught in there. And here's a super secret fact. I could save all this stuff and make another batch. Now, if your spices are a little weak, you could add another half amount, like half a cinnamon stick, a few more allspice berries and things like that. So I'm going to set this aside. And I tend to like all the drinks really thick. I think this can go over here. Trying to give us some room because I'm hoarding all the drinks. So you guys noticing that? Okay, so the first thing we did was we added the apricots, the water, pumpkin puree, and nutmeg. And then what we just did was strain the apple juice mixture that we had heated for 10 minutes. And that was 3 cups of apple juice with a cinnamon stick, some allspice berries. And I think that was it. And ginger slices. And we just strained those into here. And so we should have everything in here. And I'm going to blend this up together. Okay. And now I'm going to taste it. So because it's been blended, you guys can see, if I can get to the camera, there you go. You can see it gets frothy. And so that is one way you could really froth for the other stuff. Let me take a little taste. And it's thick. It's a thick drink. And I'll show you this from this side too. And what's going to happen is if you put this in the fridge, it's going to thicken up and you may need to add more water. So you could take half of this out of the fridge if it's real thick and gotten, a little too thick. Put it in the blender with half the amount of the pumpkin juice in the blender with enough water to make it the consistency that you want it to be. And you know what? This is just as good warm as it is cold. But let me pour, you can see me pour it in here. In a Gryffindor mug. That's for my friend Dawn. Who else is Gryffindor? And this stuff is just so tasty. So it's just very lightly spiced. You taste a little bit of cinnamon, a hint of nutmeg. When I put allspice in something, it kind of gives you kind of as if you put a little cloves and some cinnamon and other things, so you get this really nice balanced out spiciness in here. So the shortcut on doing pumpkin juice, and actually I'll come back up, and the pumpkin juice is just sweetened with the unsweetened apricots and the apple juice. So that's kind of cool.